Yorgos Lanthimos is one of the weirdest working directors today and one of the best. And this is maybe his weirdest movie yet. So, should you go see Poor Things? Let you know. I'm a big fan of Yorgos. I love all of his movies. I love the weird sensibility that he brings to everything. I love his sense of humor and the fact that he infuses movies that are almost all half horror and half comedy and somewhere and live in a hybrid world in between and have all these big themes to play with. And this is no exception. This movie is his longest to date, and it has an epic scope to it, spanning a long period of time and having many different movements of story. This may actually be his best movie. Being a fan, I love the last few especially, but this may be my favorite. What makes it so damn good is Emma Stone as Bella Baxter. So Bella Baxter is a Frankenstein. She's essentially a woman who committed suicide and then had her baby's brain put into her skull, and so she's behaving like a child, and she's a child put into the body of a beautiful and desirable woman, which causes all kinds of havoc. Created by Godwin, played by Willem Dafoe, who's already bizarre, angular, misshapen face is given more extraordinary angles and scars. And the Godwin character is a really great creation too. And Willem Dafoe is pretty great in this, as he's great in everything. Godwin is a sort of a monstrous character in that what he's doing is the way he's experimenting with science is completely unethical. But he's very lovable, and even like Bella shows him a lot of love. And in one point, we discover why he's doing this. That a lot of his point of view on science was given to him by his father, who experimented on him and is the reason why he looks like this, the reason why he acts like that. So he's a sympathetic and great character. But really, Emma Stone steals the show here. It's really funny to think that this girl who was like the pretty high school girl from Superbad is now one of our best actresses. But I really do think she is. I think she's turning out great performance after great performance and picking really interesting roles, which I think is sometimes more important than actually being even good, is like how great you are at picking a good story, right? Like I think DiCaprio is not the greatest actor in the world. He just happens to have the absolute best taste in movies. And so he makes the most good stuff of any actor. But she's really incredible here. I think absolutely should be the front runner for best actress. It's hard to imagine another actress doing something as extraordinary as this year. I haven't seen everything, so I can't say, but she basically has to play Bella in several stages of development, changing the way she walks, dances, speaks, changing her voice, changing everything about her throughout the course of the movie. So she's really almost playing like 7-8 different versions of Bella by the end of this thing. It's pretty impressive. It's also such a physically demanding role. I mean, one of the things that's physically demanding is there is more sex in this movie than you could possibly want. Okay, and I'm gonna warn you here. You're going, oh, I like a little sex in my movie. It's not good sex for the most part. For the most part, you're gonna see everybody on display, but a lot of times it's kind of that gross or funny sex more than anything. So if you're really not there, you don't really want to go to the movies and just watch people have sex. Maybe it's not for you. But again, it's not there to be erotic, right? It's not a Skinamax movie. This is it's there for funny moments and often to gross you out. Besides Emma Stone as Bella Baxter, basically everybody is extraordinary here, I think. We have Rami Youssef, the comedian, playing a man in love with her. And he's sort of a sweet character, and I think Rami's face really plays in that. He's got a very sweet looking face. And sort of, even though he makes some decisions that are kind of gross and bothersome, ultimately he does come off pretty good. And I think that's the casting is so brilliant because his face just makes you love him. We also have Mark Ruffalo playing against type. He's usually seen, he's such a lovely human being. And here he's just an absolute cad, a guy who's, known for taking advantage of women, and he's really scummy and then eventually going to vile character. And it's really fun to watch him do that. We don't see him do that too often. We also get Christopher Abbott in a small role in the end. I'm not going to tell you who he is or what he does. And Chris Abbott's a guy who I think originally I was dismissive of, as he's just the boyfriend from Girls, nothing too exciting. But again, every time I see him, he turns out a more interesting performance. And here again, he plays against type and plays a pretty awful character, and he's pitch perfect. Overall, the cast here is just fantastic. The look of the movie is really extraordinary as well. It starts off with really stark black and white photography. And then when Bella goes off on her journey into the real world, it becomes like super colorful, oversaturated colors, fantastic sets. And the movie just has a very unrealistic look to it. Now, at times, that was something where I had a mixed response to. There's a lot of shots in the movie. I think it's absolutely beautifully filmed. And the whole thing lends itself to be unrealistic, right? So when you see the entire thing was shot on a soundstage, except for I believe one scene, because they wanted to recall those old Frankenstein movies, which were all shot on the Universal Sound Studios. But they also wanted to emphasize that unrealistic look. So when you see a landscape, it really is not meant to look real. It's meant to look almost like a fantasy world. There's like Zeppelins flying in the background, and it doesn't look like any city that really exists anywhere. And that's, absolutely intentional. There's a lot to look at too here, whether it's the faces of the many extraordinary people. I think one of the things Yorgos does here is he casts a lot of people for their faces, for their looks. There's a, madame woman who's a small woman with her body completely covered in tattoos, got a very unusual voice, and there's a lot of men in the later scenes that are cast just for their looks, maybe non-actors, and it lends to the overall just like look of the movie, which is absolutely fascinating. I think Yorgos also is one of those directors who likes to push your buttons. He likes to push things into the extreme. He's maybe attracted to extremes. As a viewer, I am as well, and so I like things like excessive sex, especially not more for the funny, weird stuff. That I don't want to be sitting in a theater trying to be turned on. That's awkward. But I do think the extremes for me are appealing and interesting. And there's also like anytime he can show you a close-up of surgery, he's going to do that. So if you don't like that kind of thing, there's a lot of gross stuff here that you should be warned about. But if you're into that and you like this directors that push your buttons and try to push the audience to the edge, then this is a movie for you, like it was for me. Sometimes the cinematography pushes to an extreme stylization that did take me out of the movie. For instance, there's often there's a use of these old lenses that have so much fall off that the majority of the image is out of focus except for the subject. That has a beautiful aesthetic quality that I really appreciated. But there's also the use at times of really fisheye lenses, like very super wide angle lenses that to me threw me. Every time I saw them, I kept thinking about the lenses. And unless that's what Yorgos was trying to do, I guess there probably is some esoteric reason that Yorgos is using these lenses that he could talk about. But for me, it did make me think about, what lenses the cinematographer using. And I don't really want to do that when I'm just getting swept up into a story. This could be one of the reasons why that unreal look is emphasized here, is if you actually look at the novel that this is based on. In the novel, at the end of the novel, Bella Baxter's husband comes out. The novel is actually told from Bella Baxter's husband. It's long years after the journey that she goes on, and we find out from her husband. He tells us this story that's very fantastic and bizarre. And the very end chapter is Bella Baxter comes in and says, "Hey, look, my husband wrote this about me. None of it's true. He's fantasized that I'm some sort of Frankenstein and made up all kinds of shit because he's obsessed with the Victorian, literature of the era that is the most morbid of centuries. And don't listen to him." So, in the end, we're left the novel. We're left questioning, and although that's never brought up in the movie, maybe that is the way that the cinematography sort of infuses this idea that this is not real into the movie. That could be what he's going for. I don't know. There was some controversy about this movie that I think is, of course, in the era that we live in a stupid era. And one of the controversies is the idea that Bella, because she is a baby being shoved into the body of a fully grown woman, she can't consent, and therefore this is a creepy movie. And Yorgos' response to this is to say, look, the movie is a metaphor, it's a story. You can't have it exist in reality and play by the rules of reality, because then none of it stands up. None of it's going to hold up to scrutiny. It's completely unrealistic. And I think that is a pretty good take on why that is sort of a dumb idea about this movie. Also, for those people who are, worried, oh, we have an infant brain put into the body of a woman and she's having all kinds of sex. None of the men are aware of this, okay? So the idea of consent is just not at play here. None of the men are aware that she is a baby. They are under the impression she is a fully grown woman. So no one takes advantage of her in this movie, or at least in that way. So you can sort of table that kind of, I think, ridiculous idea. So overall, Poor Things, should you see it? Absolutely, especially if you're looking for those movies that push the boundaries of what story can do, if you like your stuff a little edgier, a little nastier, but I think it's a great time in the movies. Lots of good laughs here and a lot of really interesting ideas about an exploration of what it's like to be a human being, what it means to be human, what it means to be alive, what it means to experiment and love life. And all of this is put into this really fun and gorgeous to look at story. So check out Poor Things. What did you think of Poor Things? What do you think of the controversies surrounding it? Do you think they're dumb? Do you think they're valid? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thank you.